Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving right into an absolute masterclass in ancient persuasive rhetoric. We're going to take a completely objective look at a truly fascinating piece of historical source material, a text known as Hebrews. Now, whether you're a total history buff or completely new to ancient texts, what we're going to do today is unpack how this author uses incredibly vivid imagery and structured arguments to motivate an audience that is deeply, fundamentally, exhausted. The opening line sets the tone so perfectly. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, wow, right? It's literally cinematic. The author instantly hooks the reader by painting this picture of a massive, stadium-style crowd watching from the heavens. Imagine being completely drained, on the verge of just throwing in the towel, and suddenly you're told that an entire historical Hall of Fame is up in the grandstands cheering you on. It's a brilliant rhetorical device designed to immediately inject life and energy into a weary audience. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand exactly how the author constructs this motivational masterpiece, we're going to follow the thematic arc they've laid out across 5 key areas. First, running the race. Second, reframing hardship. Third, the warning of Esau. Fourth, a tale of two mountains. And finally, the unshakable kingdom. So, kicking things off with section 1, running the race. The source material immediately frames human life not as a casual stroll, but as a grueling athletic marathon. And the text doesn't just give some vague motivational speech here, it provides a highly specific 4-part action plan for the runner. First up, throw off everything that hinders. Think of it like an ancient athlete stripping down before a race to shed excess weight. Number 2, remove entangling sin, those specific traps that trip up your feet. Third, run with perseverance, acknowledging that, hey, this is a marathon of endurance, not a sprint. And finally, fix your eyes on Jesus. The author turns ancient prose into a super digestible, actionable checklist for the weary runner to regain their focus. And that brings us to a really crucial piece of the author's logic. The text commands the audience to consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. That phrase right there, do not lose heart, is essentially the ancient equivalent of addressing modern burnout. So why does this matter? Well, the text is offering Jesus' own endurance on the cross, scorning its shame, as the ultimate historical model of pushing through unimaginable pain. The argument is simple but powerful. If he could endure that, you can definitely endure your current struggles. Moving right along to section 2, reframing hardship. Here, the author executes a brilliant pivot. We move from the public sports arena straight into intimate, familial dynamics to address a really challenging argument. The central question the audience is clearly wrestling with is, why do we face hardship? If we're on the right path, why is it so incredibly painful? The author addresses this head-on and is about to introduce a surprising theological claim regarding the very nature of suffering itself. This is where the author makes a brilliant rhetorical move, defining hardship through the lens of divine discipline. The text's internal logic totally reframes painful hardship. It argues that suffering isn't a sign of divine abandonment. Instead, it is the intentional, loving correction of a father for his children. The author attempts to rally the audience by completely shifting their perspective. They're saying you aren't being punished or forgotten. You are being actively parented. In fact, if you aren't disciplined, the text argues, you aren't truly part of the family. Let's see how this builds into a logical progression. The author walks the audience through 3 distinct steps. Step 1, submit to the discipline. And the text openly admits it's not pleasant, it's painful at the time. Step 2, understand the ultimate goal is to share in divine holiness. Step 3, wait for the result, which is producing a harvest of righteousness and peace. So the crucial takeaway is that the text promises that temporary pain, when you view it properly as training, eventually yields an incredibly valuable, peaceful harvest. Which brings us to section 3, the warning of Esau. After offering all that encouragement, the author suddenly pivots to a pretty stark cautionary tale, designed to vividly explain the incredibly high stakes of just giving up. Let's trace this tragic sequence of decisions. We start at 0 years. Esau is born with the incredible privilege and birthright of being the oldest son. But look at what happens in just 1 hour of weakness. Driven by temporary physical hunger, he sells his entire inheritance for a single meal. Jump to years later. He realizes his mistake and seeks the blessing with tears. But the result for his lifetime? He's rejected. Even with tears, he couldn't change what he'd done. The author uses Esau to really hammer home the terrifying concept of irreversible consequences. The message is clear. Don't trade your future for temporary, immediate relief. Now, after that dark, heavy warning about Esau, the text immediately bounces back to the athletic imagery we saw at the beginning. It offers this encouraging call to action. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet. The author is telling them, don't let the lame become completely disabled. Rather, heal. It's a powerful, highly practical command to actively rehabilitate their spiritual and communal endurance. Now for Section 4, A Tale of Two Mountains. This geographic metaphor is absolutely the literary climax of the source material we're looking at today. The author draws a striking side-by-side contrast between two totally distinct spiritual locations. On the left, we have what is essentially the Mountain of Fear. On the right, we have Mount Zion, which we can think of as the Mountain of Joy. This spatial metaphor is meant to underscore the absolute gravity of the message by showing the audience exactly where they used to stand versus where they get to stand right now. Now, what's really interesting here is how starkly the author contrasts these two realms. Just look at the features. On the Mountain of Fear, the atmosphere is darkness, gloom, burning fire, and storm. But on the Mountain of Joy, it's a joyful assembly in a heavenly Jerusalem. Look at the sounds. The first has a trumpet blast and a voice so terrifying people actually begged for it to stop. The second has sprinkled blood that speaks a better word. And the inhabitants? Well, the first mountain features a terrified Moses and the threat that even animals would be stoned if they touched it. The second welcomes you with thousands upon thousands of angels, righteous spirits made perfect, and Jesus himself as the mediator. It's just a masterpiece of contrast between untouchable terror and welcoming joy. But all this beautiful imagery is actually driving toward a very serious plea for perseverance, building a severe logical progression. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less will we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? The author is arguing from the lesser to the greater here. If the terrifying earthly mountain demanded strict obedience, then the heavenly mountain of joy demands even greater reverence and commitment. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, The Unshakable Kingdom. Here, the author prepares the viewer for a completely apocalyptic and cosmic conclusion to their argument. Let's break down the logic of how the author envisions this cosmic purification. Step 1. At the earthly mountain, God's voice shook the earth. Step 2. But now there is a promise to shake not only the earth but also the heavens. Step 3. The text explicitly explains that the phrase once more indicates the removal of what can be shaken, meaning created, temporary things. And Step 4. Why? So that only what cannot be shaken may remain. The author is comforting this exhausted audience by assuring them that the fragile, painful world they are enduring is being stripped away to reveal something totally permanent. And the text caps off all this incredible, intense imagery with one final awe-inspiring quote. For our God is a consuming fire. It demands reverence and awe from the reader. It is an energetic, gravely serious reminder of the immense power behind the very kingdom they are inheriting. So, as we wrap up our analysis of this incredible historical text, I really want to leave you with a deeply personal question to consider. When the world shakes, what unshakable things remain in your life? The ancient author of Hebrews used every rhetorical tool in the book: sports metaphors, family dynamics, cautionary tales, and huge cosmic imagery, all to force their audience to figure out what truly lasts. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking for the unshakable in your own journey.